how does it not affect them? A lot of times we feel that it's just the sexuality or the sensuality or, oh, my periods are fine, I don't have pain. But there's this piece that our relationship with our wombs, with our yonis, with our pussies affects how we show up in the world on a grander scale. So this work is not just to help you have a better orgasm or to help you have an easeful period. It is literally evolving the way that you can show up in the world as a woman, as a feminine being, and how you're able to express yourself and live in flow with your cycles, your inner cycles and the cycles of Pachamama. And so I think a lot of times for my clients, it's much bigger than they even realize.
Welcome to the Wild Flow podcast with me, Charlotte Puanto, an award-winning menstrual cycle coach and priestess, and the founder of First Moon Circle School. I guide women to honor and embrace their sacred cycles in their life, leadership, and business. Let's say hi to more ease and flow by co-creating with your body, and goodbye to struggle and burnout. This podcast features soul-enriching conversations, inspiring you to love your cycle, lead as a sacred leader, and grow a life and business that serves you by harnessing cyclical life and business practices. Join me and other change makers, thought leaders, and wise women to embrace and embody your wild flow. Hello and welcome to Wild Flow Podcast with me, Charlotte. I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you for tuning in. It has been a hot minute since the last episode. I had a trip to the UK and then sickness on my return, and I've just had to allow myself some time to rest and heal and really look after myself before coming back to podcasting. And we are back with a really beautiful conversation with a wise woman, a medicine woman today, what I'm really looking forward to you listening to. I'd love to introduce you to Davina of Divine Connections .love, as she is on Instagram and Facebook. She is a shamanic womb healer, and she is really here to hold us to heal the menstrual shame and the body shame and the shame of our yonis and our vulvas and our wombs and our cyclical nature, and especially our blood that we experience. And she's here to talk to us about what menstrual shame is and all the ways that it disconnects us from our power and stops us from really being our full self in lots of different ways. She's talking to us about the beautiful work that she does, such as Tantric, de-armouring bodywork, Yoni massage, and how that can help us to release trauma from the pelvis, how she works and guides plant medicine healing, and which plant medicines are particularly aligned and potent for womb healing and womb health. We're sharing our favourite blood rituals as well, and how we can really tap into the reclaiming of our blood and our bodies and our power by honoring our sacred menstrual blood. This is a really beautiful conversation where Davina is sharing her story and how she got into this work, what shamanic womb healing is, all the ways that we are trapped by cultural experiences and our own lived experiences of traumas, and how we internalize shame and how that shows up in our bodies, and ways of healing. So settle in for a beautiful conversation, and let me introduce you to Davina. Davina is a healer and spiritual guide dedicated to assisting women in rediscovering their soul's purpose. By sharing shamanic womb wisdom, she empowers women to understand the wisdom of their wombs. This helps them tap into their sensual energy, welcoming pleasure and play into their everyday lives. By embracing their menstrual blood, they discover rejuvenation through moments of stillness and rest. Through ancient rituals, they can establish a connection with their maternal lineage, using it as a source of healing for future and past generations. Davina's work is deeply rooted in the ancient practice of shamanism, as well as the wisdom received from plant medicines during her half year in the Sacred Valley of Peru. Davina's teachings are deeply spiritual and witchy, encouraging all parts of the divine feminine to be embraced, the light and the dark feminine, as a holistic form of healing our wombs and our lineages. So settle in and take a moment to connect with your womb space and where you're at in your cycle, and let's dive in. Welcome back to Wildflow. Davina, welcome to Wildflow. It's really lovely to have you here. How are you today?
Thank you so much. It feels so wonderful to be here. I am winding down as the evening winds down, moving slowly, but feeling really good.
I can really feel there's a steady but slower, real present energy coming from you. And it's really beautiful for me to receive that today. I'll invite us to do a cycle check-in and we can go into that more. So for me, I just to share first with a cycle check-in on my cycle day 27 today. I'm late in my menstrual cycle, deep in the luteal, but I've still got pretty reasonable energy. I haven't felt like a descent is really calling me yet. I feel quite energized, and I guess in that phase of wanting to complete, wanting to tie up loose ends, wanting to look at what I wanted to create this cycle, and to see what really needs my energy and my presence before I take some time to bleed and have a winter time, a inward hibernation time. It is 11 a.m. here in Australia when we're recording this, so very different energy to you. We are, at different poles of the day. You're in that slowing down, and I'm in that, okay, busy, busy, busy. And I'm trying not to feel that energy kind of pulling me outwards. I'm trying to stay grounded with my feet on the earth and really be in my body and listen to the pace of my body rather than the pace of the day. And so your energy, when I say it feels like the beautiful medicine for me to receive today, it feels like it's holding me in that. And we're also coming up to winter solstice next week too here. So we have dark nights, long nights. It is very cold. I'm in my warmest jumper today with the heater on and my slippers on and my woolly socks. And it feels like a real cocoon kind of time. A time of being really aware of my inner world and tuning inwards and sharing from that place as well. So that is where I'm at in my body, and in the seasons of this year and this earth. So I'd love to invite you to share with us your cycle check-in in whatever way that you'd like to share that and how that feels for you today.
Mm. So I am also deep in my premenstrual phase. I'm about 3 days out from bleeding, and I am starting to feel this like slowing down of my energy and the things that I normally do on a daily basis. I'm feeling more tired and just constantly being asked like to slow down, just move a little slower. It's all right. There's a little bit of this internal struggle that sometimes happens when my brain still wants to continue to create. And it's like, oh, but we could be doing all of these things.
Yeah, I hear that.
There's still a list of things we could be working on. And my spirit is like, it's okay. It doesn't need to happen right now. Just allow yourself to rest and move slowly and, go to the market and get the nourishing foods that you know you'll need in these next few days so you don't have to leave. And so really just getting into this space of nourishing myself and preparing for this hibernation season for my bleed, which I'm really looking forward to doing a really yummy Yoni steam probably on Thursday or Wednesday evening, just to like settle into this cocoon that I will be in for the weekend. I am in Mexico. I'm in the southernmost state of Mexico, in Chiapas, a little mountain town called San Cristobal de las Casas, and we are moving into summer. So summer solstice is like in 2 weeks, I think. So it's this time of kind of I'm seeing the seeds that I've planted in spring begin to sprout, and it's such a beautiful process to be in alignment with the seasons, not only internally on a monthly basis, but also with my work, aligning myself to be able to rest more in the winter and like create internally so that this beautiful season of summer can be so full and vibrant and bright.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing how you're
Mm.
feeling and what that practically looks like for you, as well as the energy of it. And I really love the rituals that you have around this time of preparing for that cocoon, that hibernation, and with steaming and preparing foods. That just sounds really, really lovely. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think I'll steam this week too before my bleed comes. Yeah.
Mm.
Beautiful. And I hear you. I really love that you have that awareness too of the earth seasons, and that you're looking at what is growing and what is blooming, what is really coming to fruition at this time of those seeds that you have been working with this solar cycle for you too. And I think that that's such an important thing to do, to bring that into how we live our lives and into the work that we do, to understand that our work has seasons and cycles too, and that we can go beyond menstrual cycle wisdom, which is so important as the primary cycle in our bodies, but to see that everything is cyclical and everything is related, and the way that we work with seasons and cycles in our work as well allows us to create in the most aligned way and nourish and sustain ourselves to do that. And I'm really hearing from you that that's an awareness that you're having. And for me too, it's this winter time, and I feel like this year for me has been quite a slow winding down from summer, and I took a lot of summer off, and then sort of haven't really found a really full creative flow this year. I've been in a much more gentle kind of space, and it's really supported me to have a kind of recuperating time uh, in gestation with a new project that I'm going to bring through just after winter solstice, and allowed that to really that vision to really unfold and to crystallize and be distilled and like really become clear in me, so that I feel like I'm giving it time rather than as always being in that perpetual must create, must create, must create. And I'm hearing that come through for you as well with where you're at in your cycle. Like there is time, there is time. So thank you for the gift of your reflection and your cycle check-in. And
Mm.
yeah, wishing you a beautiful last few days of your cycle, and then bleed when that comes too.
Thank you. I received that.
Beautiful. So, Davina, we're here today to talk about womb wisdom, womb healing, and particularly the shamanic approach that you hold around the work that you do. And so, I'd love to open our conversation about this with to touch on menstrual shame and the shame of our bodies. And it's such a pervasive issue that is just everywhere in the world. It's not hidden. It's in plain sight with the messaging that we get about our bodies, and um, about what it means to be cyclical and what it means to bleed. but the way that we hold it internalized as well is just so deep rooted that I think many of us don't even realize that we're holding shame, and this causes so much disconnection around our body and our blood and our sex and sexuality as well, creating so much deep disconnection. And so I'd love to start from this place, because this is something that you work with. Is I'd just love to hear from you, if you don't mind to share, um, how you have experienced shame around your body or your blood, and how this has um, shaped you, I guess. What's your story with
Mm,
this?
wow. Mm. I feel that this question is a story that connects all women and people who bleed everywhere for generations behind and generations to come. Um, for me, I grew up in a really intensely Christian household, and there was never a conversation around my bleed or menstruation. And it was kind of just when it happened, I had to figure it out. I remember distinctly wearing a tampon for probably at least like 3 hours with the plastic still on,
Mm.
because
Mm.
I didn't know. I had no idea what I was doing,
Yeah.
and there was no one to ask. And it didn't feel like a safe space to have these conversations. Um, Really, the only conversation we had in my religious household was that sex was a sin, sexuality was a sin, sexual pleasure was a sin, unless you were married and doing it with your husband. And it was kind of, that was the beginning and the end of the conversation. No space for questions or exploration or anything really. And so it really deeply shaped into my mid 20s, late 20s, I would say, even this internalized shame of my sexual energy, of my sensual energy, and feeling like, oof, like God is watching me and is really disappointed that I even have these feelings. Like he's really upset with me. So I must suppress.
Mm.
So I must pretend like I don't have these feelings, like it doesn't exist. Um, Also, this conversation around, our bleed and how not being able to speak about it, not only as a young woman, but even like in friend groups, noticing that my girlfriends, we weren't really talking about it. It was never a conversation that we had together. We would talk about all kinds of other things, but it just never seemed to be something that was on the table. So, yeah, there was a lot of internalized shame that I have spent a lot of time working through.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. As you say,
Mm,
I think so many people resonate with your story, with this sense of we shame in the way that we were not educated, we weren't supported. It's always been something to just figure out. Um, and then, your story, thank you for sharing that, using a tampon with the plastic on, because how else would you know? And it's so important that we have this support at that time, but we just don't get it. And it creates so much fear and rejection of ourselves and disconnection and suppression of what it means to really honor this sacred part of ourselves. And so I'm really grateful for hearing your experience with that, because I know that this is something that underpins a lot of the work you do um, as a healer today. And so, is there anything else that you'd just like to share on this sort of piece around shame that you see with the women that you work with, about how it affects them?
mm, yeah. How does it not affect them? And this is kind of the conversation that I have with a lot of my clients, because a lot of times we feel that it's just the sexuality or the sensuality, or, you know, oh, my periods are fine. I don't have pain. But there's this piece that our relationship with our wombs, with our yonis, with our pussies affects how we show up in the world on a grander scale. So this work is not just to help you have a better orgasm or to help you have an easeful period. It is literally evolving the way that you can show up in the world as a woman, as a feminine being, and how you're able to express yourself and live in flow with your cycles, your inner cycles, and the cycles of Pachamama. And so I think a lot of times for my clients, it's much bigger than they even realize.
Mm.
Our first conversation is oftentimes like, oh, I have painful periods, or oh, I haven't had an orgasm ever, and I don't know why. But then it expands into this healing that affects all of their relationships, all of their, you know, professional lives and existences. Every single part of their lives are affected by their relationship to their wombs. And so once we kind of open that Pandora's box, it's like a work that slowly and easily expands into all parts of their being.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you for the gift of that. That feels so true as well in what I have experienced in myself and in healing these layers of deep shame and rejection and with what I see as well with those that I support in this space. It's just that, like you say, it's oh, I don't have shame about this, or oh, it's fine. But when we really unpack it, it's there, it's held, it's got its grip in our body and keeps us small in so many ways. And I really love how you
Mm.
just shared and expressed that. So thank you. I think that's such powerful reflections for us to really sit with as we deepen into this conversation. Hey, have you discovered your sacred cyclical leadership style yet? Take my juicy free archetype quiz to discover your primary style as she shows up in you and in the way you create, lead, and share your big magic in the world. By taking the quiz, you receive an in-depth, juicy playbook featuring a full breakdown of how the archetype lives in you and tips, tools, and strategies to expand your archetypal gifts, nourish your vulnerabilities, and come to balance so you can lead, grow, and serve at your highest potential. Understand how your archetype is linked to your menstrual cycle and the seasons of life and business, and ultimately have so much fun taking this magic mirror quiz. Go to charlottepuanto.com/quiz. And in case you're wondering, mine is the mystic. How about you? I'd love to know which result you get. So your work is shamanic womb healing, and I'd love to ask you to share with us what that means for anyone who's not familiar with the term shamanism or shamanic womb healing, and how this became or why this became your body of work.
Mm. Yeah, so my understanding of shamanism as a spiritual practice is this deep rooted connection to all living beings, including, you know, the four directions, the elements, the water, the air, the earth, fire, to the plants of the land that we live on, to the animals of the land that we live on. And so the core of shamanism in the work that I teach is that when we look to Mother Nature and we remember our connection to her, we are able to naturally live a more easeful, peaceful, pleasurable existence that is deeply in alignment, as opposed to this kind of patriarchal system that most of us are used to, that tells us to constantly go, 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 do, output, output, output. As feminine beings, we are not created in that way. So it is a form of looking to nature as our blueprint, as our roadmap. How do we grow in one season and rest in another? How do we expand in one season and contract in another? How do we embrace these differences and allow them to be our superpowers versus this story that we've been told that it is a weakness, that our softness is weakness, that our emotions are weakness, that our vulnerabilities are weaknesses, actually kind of reframing those into the most powerful parts of our feminine being.
Mm. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I resonate with that so much. I really hold that view too of honoring ourselves as mirrors of earth and seeing that real interconnectedness of all things, and how, we have to honor all parts of ourselves and of the earth and each other for harmony and for well-being. And I think that the way you described that, connecting to the elements and the directions and to um all of those energies, and really honoring them as sacred and therefore a reason not to catch
Mm,
us out because it's a weakness and we're the pharaoh weaker sex. But we have this inbuilt capacity in our bodies and this inbuilt rhythm, and we are that fractal of the whole. And I think that that is just so beautiful and so important. And I think we're really lucky to have that within us, aren't we? As like
mhm.
a map to wholeness, I guess. So how did you find this work? How did this become what you're passionate about and what you share in the world?
Yeah. So at one point in my journey, I was bleeding about twice a year. So just about every 6 months. And I was told that it runs in my family and I could either have surgery or take medicine for the rest of my life. And something internally, which I know now was my intuition, was like, no, I don't think so. I don't think those are my only options. And so I went on this journey of exploring and discovering and asking questions and speaking to other women, and I actually ended up at one point quitting my job, selling all of my things and leaving the country and just traveling, just going to see what there was. And what I started to realize is that in addition to the rituals and ceremonial practices that I was being exposed to, that my quality of life, the amount of stress that I was putting myself through, how I was eating, the environment around me were all also affecting my womb and my ability to bleed and release every month. And so naturally, as I started to support myself in the way that I needed, in the way that my womb was longing for, my cycles began to come into alignment naturally into a 28 to about 32-day cycle. And so that was kind of the moment where it was like, wow, okay, this is really important because I know there are so many women who feel that the only answer is to do what the doctors are telling them or what outside voices are telling them is right for them. And they have no idea that this voice inside that's like, no, wait, there might be something else, that voice is the roadmap, right? That voice is the voice that is guiding us to what it is that we really need. Um, Specifically around my work with shamanism, I ended up in Peru, and I was in Peru for almost a year, just working and learning and releasing both from Peruvian ancestors and cultures and from the plant medicines there. And so those were my biggest teachers. And that is kind of how that work was integrated into my being in a way that I'm now able to share with others.
Mm, incredible, incredible work. And what a story. Thank you. That's such an important story to share so that people can hear that, there are other ways. And I really admire the depth of knowing that you had, and that you heard that and you listened and you found this other way and made a really radical decision to up and leave. And I just love that. That's something I do. Well, not right now because I have three small children, but yeah, I would have done, and I would do as well the moment I can. But anyway, side note.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really feel that. But to really listen, and be there, and to look at all the stress, like you say, there's so many factors that are there, the stories, the traumas that we live through, so many things that get hold in our bodies. And I think it's incredible that you managed to heal your cycle that way, and really honor and be with your womb, and your intuition to bring your cycle back to something that is regular and healthy, and just feels like something that you really honor and and revere as something really deeply sacred, and you're able to
Mm.
share from that place too. So that sounds
Mhm.
incredible. And something I saw you do on your as some of the work you do is tantric de-armouring body work. I was watching
Mhm.
a video on your Instagram about you sharing this training that you had done and this work that you're doing. And you were describing how it takes a woman deeply into her body, to heal shame and to explore trauma, and to release that. And you were saying that it can take someone deeper than some other practices that we might um, consider spiritual practices, and really being with ourselves and going within. And you were talking about how you really work with the body. And I'd just love to hear a little bit about that, about how we hold trauma in our body in that way, and how that kind of practice can really hold space, and allow, and how somebody who is feeling like, oh no, I couldn't possibly do that, might find a way in to come and explore that kind of work too.
Mm. Yeah. Where do I start? So, tantric body de-armoring is a really potent modality of healing. As you just noted, so much trauma is stored in our physical bodies, everywhere in the body. And the womb and the yoni is almost like the seat of a lot of that trauma, a lot of that shame that comes from a whole spectrum of experiences that our feminine beings oftentimes are exposed to over the course of our lifetimes. And that is anything from sexual abuse to just shame around menstruation, to painful menstruation, to hysterectomies. I've worked with a lot of women who have hysterectomies and kind of feel like hopeless that something so important is gone from them and now there's nothing in that space. So there's so many ways that this work can support women in all parts of their life. Um, and it can be, right, this idea of like, wow, a yoni massage, an internal yoni massage like that. Wow, I could never do that. And speaking as someone, when I first heard of it, that was also my response, like, I don't know about that. And also going back to this voice, right? This intuitive voice that we all have inside of us. And something was like, maybe you should just do a little bit of research and sit with it. Just sit with it and see how it feels. And it was something that I felt deeply called to. And so my first session with the person who actually trained me to do this work was profound. And my reasoning in saying that it can be more supportive than a lot of other modalities is because I've worked personally with a lot of other modalities. I spent half of a year, a little over half of a year in Peru working with sacred plant medicines, working with ayahuasca to remove trauma and, shame from my womb. And I did a lot of work. And this body work was able to release something that I thought I had moved through, but was still there. And so I speak on that because it was and is my lived experience with this modality. Also, in working with women and seeing their responses to this work and seeing the release, I think that the most important thing is finding safety in a practitioner. Deeply finding and feeling safety in a practitioner. And once you have that, if there is an inkling or a part of you that feels that this work will be supportive to you, the rest will be in alignment. And the rest will happen on its own once the session comes together for you. Also, it is a very it is not my session, right? It is my client session, and we are co-creating. So there's this constant flow of, how does this feel? What do you need? Do you still want to do a yoni massage, or do you want to just stay on the womb? We can do a belly massage instead. What feels good for you in this moment? Take a deep breath, breathe into that space. What do you need? And kind of allowing the space in the session to evolve and grow and breathe in that way. So it's not like, oh, well, you agreed to do this yoni massage at the beginning of the session, so now we have to do it. It is not that at all. It is this beautiful kind of flow and allowing the body to guide you.
I love that. And I think that that is so healing in itself, to have a constant consent check, to have that experience of being really heard and held, and it being all about you and what you need and nobody else's agenda, and letting that just flow as you explore what's there and what's trapped in that, deeply sacred, vulnerable part of our bodies that can then be released and then be expressed, and then what else is there. And I hear you, and I really feel the safety that you're bringing to that, because I think the perception is that would be traumatizing or re-traumatizing, instead of healing. So yeah, thank you for sharing on that. I think that that's something that, you know, um, many people would be interested in hearing more about, and learning more about too. And you mentioned there that you have, you work with plant medicines too, as a healing tool, a teacher, a spirit guide. Is there any particular plants that you have worked with or facilitate that you would say are really for this kind of womb healing, um, this in this particular way?
Mm. Yeah, so two come to mind immediately. I work really closely with cacao, which is such a beautiful feminine medicine and allows us to drop into the energy of the grandmother, of the sacred grandmother, and is just a beautiful heart opening medicine. Sometimes, depending on the session, I'll offer cacao at the end to help kind of integrate the session, open the heart, soften into this space. Sometimes I'll offer it at the beginning. It's a really supportive and easeful plant medicine, for those who, sometimes people think plant medicine and immediately think like, ayahuasca, I'm not ready for that.
Mm.
There are also other plant medicines who are softer and gentler and still as potent. The second medicine that I work really closely with is Santa Maria or marijuana. And this medicine used in a sacred way is profound. Um, Specifically in the way that I work with it, it allows and helps us to drop into our bodies so that we can tap into our sensual energy and our sensual essence. A ritual that I really love to do with Santa Maria is a sensual dance ritual with clients where we sit with that medicine. It's not smoked, it's eaten, consumed, usually with cacao. And then we allow it to integrate into our bodies, and then we move. We allow the medicine to move the body naturally, to start to move the root chakra, to allow the body and the feminine being to kind of flow in ripples and circles and waves. And once that energy is moving and flowing really fluidly, there's so much that comes in, so much, space for downloads, for ideas, for creativity, for play, for pleasure, for all kinds of beautiful things. And so I really, really enjoy working with that medicine to help drop into the presence of the body in a safe space. Um, One more that's coming to me that I work with specifically around trauma is psilocybin. It's really, really wonderful for helping to get into these spaces where there is stagnant energy that wants to be released. And so my psilocybin ceremonies oftentimes are, 2 or 3 days long of like intentions and integration and the ceremony in the middle. And so much comes up in those ceremonies. So much is released because we're able to get out of our thinking minds and release that control that we kind of naturally want to have as humans, and just allow the energy to move as it needs to.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. It sounds really, really profound and really interesting. And I'm really think that there's so much potential with these plant medicines as well when held in a ceremony with somebody who really holds the wisdom of these plants to be guided to those deepest places. And I really think what you said there just feels so important about letting go of control and how scary that can feel and how much we hold. And that it's that softness and that openness that can really allow the healing in. That's really fascinating. And I feel really called to ask you, Davina, if you want to share with us your favorite blood magic ritual, because I feel like that is
Mm.
something you would, yeah, really like to share with us. That's my sense.
Probably free bleeding.
Hmm.
It has been such a journey for me to allow my Yoni to just freely bleed, to allow her to release in a way where she feels open and free and comfortable, and I can interact with my menstrual blood and I can see it and I can touch it and I can put it on my third eye and astral dream, and I can do a regenerative face mask, and I can really take back the power and the sacred essence of this blood, as opposed to this idea that it needs to be hidden and thrown away as useless or unimportant. And so free bleeding is something that I talk a lot about in my workshops with women, and oftentimes I'm like I usually get at least one person that's like, "Wait, what? But you just like bleed all over your furniture? How does that even work? What are you talking about, woman?"
Yeah.
So, yes, right? There is this aspect that's like, there's a little bit of technical planning that needs to happen. I have sarongs that I use, and I have waterproof blankets that I use. And when I was living in a space with a garden, I would just go outside and set up my space in the garden and just bleed onto the earth. And it's such a like ancestral process
Oh,
that connects us to the grandmothers, to the great grandmothers that came before us, to the sisters and the daughters and the mothers. It is so incredibly potent. Just this simple act of allowing our yonis to freely release,
mm,
um, at least one day out of my bleeding cycle, I like to be able to free bleed.
yeah.
Hmm.
Amazing. Thank you. I really feel that. I love free bleeding too. I think it just
Hmm.
holds so much. It feels so liberating and sensual and so much reverence for my body, to be able to just let her bleed, and to I do the same in my garden. It's feels like
Mm.
an offering to just bleed and make myself known to the land, and just to really, like you say, connect in with the spirits of the land. It feels really, just giving it all over and
Mhm.
letting it all release. Um and just to have that time. And yeah, for me it doesn't always get to be for very long, but just that little bit of time to just go and do that is really, really special. And when it's wintry and cold, I love to I have a splash blanket, which is a waterproof blanket too, and I just love
Mhm.
to to sit or to lie on that. And I always, every bleed, I'll return my blood to the plants as well, and feed the roses particularly. They just love the blood. So I think it's so
Mhm.
special. And for me, it's been a really, what you were saying there about, I really like to wear my blood on my third eye and to anoint, and then to do sensual dance. For me, that is just like, feels
Hmm.
so in my power and deeply connected to other dimensions as well, and to have a real journey with that. Um, and what you were saying there about, using it for a mask, and, just really reclaiming the power and the magic of your blood, I think is such an incredible way to explore, how we feel about like the texture of our blood and the smell and the sensation of it. And like,
Mhm.
it can be so like, at first. So I love that that's your favorite ritual. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just
Mhm.
love this conversation. And so you do you have, a really beautiful um set of offerings that you support women through. I'd love to hear, what you have on offer, what you're offering right now, so that yeah, people who want to find out more um from you can connect and explore what you have on available.
Yes. A lot of my work is one-on-one. So I have some in-person offerings for one-on-one private retreats with women. And we basically, it's like, I like to say a spiritual pharmacy where we
Mm,
have a conversation about what you need, and we decide together what plants or modalities will be most supportive for you. Um, I live in Mexico, and it is a beautiful country. So I have three different parts of Mexico that I go to work with clients. We can be by the beach, in the mountains. So there's a few different options for one-on-ones. I also have a online virtual blood magic shamanic womb wisdom course that's available to support women with rituals and ceremonies that allow them to reclaim their menstrual blood and begin this journey of reconnecting to their wombs and learning the language of their wombs so that they can begin to heal and grow and expand and love their wombs and their yonis in a way that a lot of women are yearning for. So that's a really beautiful offering that is very close to my heart. And the end of this year, November, I am co-creating a goddess rising retreat in Mexico and Oaxaca on the coastline, and that is going to be so beautiful.
Oh, it sounds
So
incredible.
powerful.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a place and a space for women to step into their goddess, to remember who they are, to reconnect to their wombs. We'll be sitting with some plant medicines, and I work closely with a beautiful astrologer, and so it's just going to be magic. It will be 7 days of pure, pure magic on the coastline of Mexico. So, yeah, those are the offerings.
Oh, incredible. I love the sound of that. And I really love how you described your work as a spiritual pharmacy. Just for one thing, I just thought that was brilliant. But that retreat just sounds so divine as well.
Mm.
Beautiful. So for anyone who's listening, who's like, oh, how do I like start exploring this a bit more? If this piece around like shame or really wanting to explore how to honor this sacred aspect of ourselves is speaking to them, but they're not quite sure like whether it's for them or how do we even start, what would you suggest the very first step be for somebody on this path?
Mm. Wow. I think that the first step that is coming to me that feels most in alignment is to sit with your womb. To begin a practice, a daily practice, even if it's 3 minutes in the morning before you get out of bed, where you have both hands over your womb space, you're breathing into that space and you're beginning to ask what she needs from you. And at first, it can often be that this space is so numb that nothing comes through. And I encourage you to continue this practice and to sit and to send love, even and especially if you don't hear anything, because eventually you will begin to hear her voice. She will begin to guide you and tell you what it is that she needs. Um, and so that's a really beautiful practice. Just deep belly breathing with your hands on your womb, sending love and verbalizing to her that you are now here with her, listening and wanting to connect with her and build a relationship with her. And that oftentimes is the beginning of a beautiful journey.
Mm. That sounds really special. What a beautiful offer there. Thank you so much, Davina.
Mhm.
Gorgeous. Yeah. So, where can people connect with you? People who are really wanting to explore you and your work more.
Mm. Yeah, so you can find me at www.divineconnections.love, divineconnections.love on Instagram, divineconnections.love on Facebook. And if you're looking for more personal, wanting to connect to me as the being, Davina, underscore Divina Mujer on Instagram.
Beautiful. I'll pop all of those links in the show notes so everyone can come and find you and
Mm.
yeah, connect with you in your world. Thank you so much, Davina, for being with us and for sharing about your work and the wisdom that you hold and really inviting women into that space of sitting with their womb and um really listening to what's there and exploring that, holding that, and opening that door to deeper healing. Thank you
Mm.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me here for this beautiful conversation and sending you so much love on your bleed. I hope you have a beautiful, restful week and blessings and love to all of the listeners as well.
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful, blessed bleed as well. Thanks, Davina.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thanks so much for listening to Wild Flow. I love having you here and hope you loved this episode. If you did, please show your love by leaving a rating and review, and share your fave episodes with your cycle and biz sisters and those who haven't yet discovered the power of their body and cycle. This is how we collectively create change and heal the sisterhood. It makes such a difference. Thank you for sharing. Haven't discovered your cyclical leadership style yet? Take my free Much Love quiz now to receive your free in-depth playbook on how to up your sacred leadership, grow your business, and thrive by embodying your cyclical archetype. Go to charlottepointo.com/quiz now. Until next time, be devoted to your body as guide and your cycle as oracle.